When you're introducing yourself to sous vide cooking, it's good to start off with some basics. But basic does not have to mean boring. And to prove it, Dan's here. He's going to show us a sous vide prepared steak that might just be the best steak you've ever had in your entire life.
So I agree. I think steak is actually the perfect thing to get into sous vide with. You want to cook a steak and have it perfectly medium rare.
Sure.
You know, edge to edge.
They're not cheap.
They're not cheap, and then you want a beautiful sear on the outside, and sous vide makes that really, really easy.
Great.
So we're going to start with 2 beautiful strip steaks. So these are about 1 pound each. You're looking for 1 to 1.5 inches thick.
Okay.
So the first step is I'm going to season them really nicely with salt and pepper. We did some testing to find out whether we need to do it now or afterwards. And we found it was really nice to get the salt on now in particular. It gives it time to diffuse into the meat during the cooking process. So there's no need to salt ahead of time. We're going to do it right before we cook. So I'm just going to be really generous with my kosher salt and lots of nice black pepper. And get this other side as well. We're going to go into a really just classic plastic bag right here. So this is the storage bag you have at home. Place these steaks in this storage bag here. And you can use really any storage bag that you have at home like this. Smaller ones work for smaller things. This is a nice big freezer bag. If you have a vacuum sealer, absolutely this is the time to do it. One of your main goals here is to get as much air as possible out of the bag. Air is an insulator, and so if you have pockets of air, it can really throw off the cooking. It can slow it down in certain areas. So vacuum sealer, if you have it, this is the time to use it. Next up, I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. We're going to toss it and make sure it's nicely coated. What it's going to allow us to do is get rid of more of the air that's in there.
Sure, it's taking up the place of the air.
It's going to fill in those gaps, which is really, really nice. It also helps if you are using a vacuum sealer, it'll keep the steaks looking nicer. So if you ever tried to vacuum seal food and you notice the edges kind of flatten out where it starts to pinch, the oil will help lubricate it and it'll help keep nice firm edges. So my goal right now is to just get as much air as I can out. I'm not gonna be able to get it all, obviously, at this point, but I like to squeeze from the bottom. And if you have oil coming out at the top, that's a good sign because it means it's kind of flowed through the whole thing there, which is great. Fold it over this way. And I'm going to seal and press.
And those steaks are in a single layer, too.
That's also important. I put them kind of fat caps out, but a nice single layer. It's gonna cook very evenly this way. Okay, so that's not the final amount of air that we're gonna get out, but it's a good start.
You know it's good when that bag is just stuck to the food.
Exactly. Okay, so now we're gonna head over here. So you notice that we've got a Dutch oven, but it's not on the stovetop, and we're circulating water at 130 degrees Fahrenheit. This device is gonna do all of the work for us. So it's gonna heat the water and it's gonna circulate it so that everywhere in the pot is the same temperature.
This is just a container for the hot tub.
Exactly. And you can use any container that you have at home. So those big plastic containers, those work great. We're gonna get it into the pot now, lower it in, and if you notice, the water starts to push any of the remaining air bubbles up and out.
It sure does.
So we're using the displacement method here, and that's gonna really help us get those last few little air bubbles out. This water is 130 degrees, which is hot, but I can definitely put my hands in it. If you were working with a water bath that was at a higher temperature, you can absolutely do this in a separate container. Keep lowering it down, even after the steak is in, and keep lowering the bag. And you can see the air comes up, and then once we get to the top, I'm just gonna pop open one corner.
Oh yeah, you're going all the way in there.
All the way, and let that air out. And then do my final seal on it just like that. And then what I like to do is clip it to the side. These are just simple binder clips. You can use anything that can hold it in place.
Great idea.
That's just a little bit of insurance. If this were floating around freely in there and the seal opened up, you could get water in the bag, which is not ideal. It's not gonna ruin things necessarily, but it's not ideal. And then I have a piece of plastic wrap here, and I'm just gonna cover it up. Now for a short cook time, it's not entirely necessary, but what it does is obviously limits evaporation. So it keeps the water level in there right. It can also help the bath come up to temperature a little bit faster. So a little bit of plastic wrap over top. We're gonna cook this for at least 1.5 hours, but we can go up to 3 hours. That water bath is the temperature that we want our steak to be, 130 degrees. So all we're really waiting to have happen is everything to reach equilibrium. That will happen in about 1.5 hours. We've got this nice window, we can go up to about 3 hours. You start going over 3 hours, you do run into some texture problems. So 1.5 to 3 hours, and then it's gonna be time to sear.
All right, well, cooking in plastic bags. It's a question that we're asked often. Is it really safe to cook in plastic bags? The answer is largely, you bet. Well, most food storage bags are actually made from polypropylene or polyethylene, and those are considered food-safe plastics. Now, we're also asked about BPA, an additive that's sometimes made for suppleness of the plastic. These bags do not contain BPA, so don't worry about that. In fact, these bags are so safe, and the sous vide temperature is at a sub-boil, so it's a nice low temperature. One could, in theory, don't do it, cut up the bag and eat it. It's non-toxic. Again, do not cut up the bag and eat it. But you could, but don't do it.
So it's been 2 hours with these steaks in the bag here, so I know that they're definitely cooked perfectly all the way through. So I'm gonna get them out of the bath. So I'm just gonna use tongs and transfer them here to this paper towel lined plate. And we did a nice job sealing our bag. This is just the fat that we added and a little bit of juices from the steaks. We didn't get any water from the bath going in.
Very little juice came out of those steaks.
Yes, because they are not overcooked in any way right now.
Yeah, I can tell. They look great, Dan.
Yeah, so this doesn't look very good right now, right?
No, not going to win any beauty awards, that's for sure.
No. And so what we need to really think of this as is when we do a lot of reverse searing, where we put something in a low oven and then we sear it.
Sure.
Same idea is going on here. This is just the initial cook. So what we're actually gonna do is let this rest here for 5 to 10 minutes. We're not letting them rest in order to kind of equalize and carry over cook, any of that. We don't need to. What we're allowing them to do right now is to steam a little bit. You can see some moisture coming off and then soak it up on the paper towels here. We want them to be as dry as possible when we go to sear, and a 5 to 10 minute rest is gonna help with that. So these have rested for 10 minutes here, and we've got tons of juices collecting in the bottom paper towel. I'm gonna use the top here to pat them really, really dry. Again, moisture is the enemy of browning, and that can be an issue with sous vide cooking.
Sure.
You really wanna get rid of as much moisture as possible.
And those really just were juices that were on the surface.
Exactly, yep.
Right.
I've got a 12-inch skillet here with 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil. It is quite a bit. What we found is that using a little bit more oil helps to fill in all the little crevices in the steak and get better browning. It also helps keep the temperature of the oil up a little bit higher.
Okay.
So when you add something, if it's got a little moisture on it, it can drop the temperature of your oil. So having a little bit more in there is a nice buffer. We've got a few little wisps of smoke here, which is perfect. So now I'm gonna go in with my steaks.
Oh, that's a good sizzle.
That's a great sound. Okay, so we're gonna let these go for about a minute aside. I'm gonna pick the steaks up every now and then and just let that oil run underneath. That's a good technique no matter what you're cooking. Sometimes you can get little pockets of moisture trapped under there in a gray spot. We don't want that. So that's been about a minute. Let's flip these guys over. Ooh, that's beautiful.
Looking just a little bit.
A little bit better?
Better, yes.
All right, those look gorgeous. So yeah, just another 60 seconds and then we'll get them out. Okay. That's another 60 seconds. So those look fantastic.
Spectacular.
Right?
Yeah.
It turned around.
Perfect,
Okay.
yes.
Well, we're not gonna see exactly what's inside there quite yet.
All right.
We're gonna make a little pan sauce to go with them.
Not that you need it, but why not?
Why not, right?
not?
We're cooking steak. So I'm gonna pour off all the oil and we're gonna add back just a tablespoon of it.
All right.
Nice fond development
Yes.
in the pan, so we wanna take advantage of that. So I'm just gonna scoop out 1 tablespoon. Put this over medium heat now, making a sauce so we
That's
can be
right.
a lot more gentle. Adding 1 minced shallot.
That pan is still plenty hot as well.
Plenty hot, yep. And a ½ teaspoon of cracked fennel seeds. So we're making this really beautiful sauce. It's got mustard and fennel and tarragon. We're gonna cook this just until it's a little bit softened, which is 1 to 2 minutes.
All right.
So that is fragrant and softened. We wanna get all that fond up, so we're gonna add a ½ cup of chicken broth,
A little deglazing action there.
a 1/4 cup of white wine, and 1½ tablespoons of Dijon mustard.
Nice.
Yeah.
Fennel and mustard. Good combination.
So I'm gonna stir this in and scrape up as much fond as I can there. What we're gonna do is cook this until it measures about ½ cup, gets really nice and reduced, which takes about 6 minutes. Okay, that is beautiful. That's down to about ½ cup.
Well reduced, yes.
Well reduced, nice and concentrated. I'm gonna turn off the heat.
Okay.
We're gonna finish our sauce with a couple tablespoons of unsalted butter. I'm gonna add 1 at a time here and whisk it in until it's nice and emulsified.
It's important to use chilled butter here because it's going to help to emulsify the sauce. If you used butter that was just too soft, well, it could actually create a broken sauce.
Awesome, and then finally, 1½ teaspoons of fresh minced tarragon. So I'm just gonna taste and adjust for salt and pepper. That was great. Tiny bit of salt and a nice big pinch of pepper.
Nice.
Okay.
That looks beautiful.
All right, are you ready to slice into these
So
and
ready.
see what we got? So I'm gonna do nice ½ thick slices.
Your knife is not putting in any effort. Look at all those beautiful juices.
It is super tender, super evenly cooked. Just look at that cook, isn't that unbelievable?
That is beautiful.
It is just completely the same temperature, edge to edge. We've got
Edge
this
to edge.
gorgeous browning. And that's possible with other methods, but it's a lot harder than what we just did.
This is bulletproof.
Absolutely. All right, can I serve you a little bit of sauce?
Please do.
I'm gonna give it to you on the side there so you can,
Appreciate the steak.
exactly.
All right, let's see if it's any good.
Yeah, let's see if it's any good, right? You don't wanna judge it just by looks alone, right?
No.
That is so tender.
Buttery tender.
Buttery
I mean,
tender.
just beautifully tender.
And if you're gonna buy a steak, you're gonna spend the money on it, You want it like this. You want it to be perfect.
I'm going to take a little bit of that pan sauce here.
That's nice. It complements, it doesn't overpower.
This was incredibly easy to cook, but it might be the most tender strip steak I've ever had.
I agree with you. It's so tender.
It's almost filet.
Yeah, it's
tender.
It's more like tenderloin. What's also so nice about sous vide is, I mean, this is a great thing to serve for company, and you're not worrying about it, right? It's in the bag, you know it's cooking right, and then you're doing this final sear that takes all of 2 minutes.
Exactly.
And then you're serving.
That is spot on perfection in steak.
Love it.
Yep. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
Well, if you'd like to make these perfect pan-seared steaks at home, use an immersion circulator to heat water to 130 degrees. Meanwhile, season and toss steaks with oil in plastic bags, seal and cook covered for 1.5 and up to 3 hours. Rest the steaks on paper towels, sear, and then make a quick pan sauce. We put together a version with mustard, wine, and oh-so-French tarragon. So from our test kitchen to your kitchen, dinner is literally in the bag with sous vide perfect seared steaks.
Thanks for watching America's Test Kitchen. What'd you think?
Well, leave a comment and let us know which recipes you're excited to make, or you can just say hello.
You can find links to today's recipes and reviews in the video description.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
See you later.
I'll see you later.